On our last episode, we watched Jason Statham transmit the one thing Langley couldn't erase, the truth. But before the signal could echo, a new squad descended into the old courtyard. Sequence 0 to 9X. They weren't designed to fight Jason. They were designed to replace him. The sky above the courtyard was perfectly still. No wind, no clouds, just the drone of a single black helicopter hovering above the cracked concrete, and the slow descent of 9 bodies in black, one by one, like shadows falling in sync. Jason Statham didn't move. Neither did Dr. Myles. H-04 stepped slightly to the side, not to run but to clear the space. The first man touched the ground, then another, all of them in identical armor, matte plates with no names, just a number stamped onto each chest. 0 to 1, 0 to 2, 0 to 3, all the way to 0 to 9. The last to descend was the shortest. Female, but her movements were sharper, faster. She landed and immediately scanned the ground, calculated terrain pressure. She wasn't looking for Jason. She was evaluating escape vectors. Jason watched her, not with surprise, with recognition. They didn't clone him physically. They cloned his response algorithms. This was his replacement, not biologically, operationally. Langley stood over the feed in the surveillance bay, silent, breathing through his nose. His contractors didn't speak. They weren't there to comment. Just watch the moment history turned digital. Langley leaned forward and tapped a command. 0 protocol, observe only. He didn't want to fight. He wanted the new squad to study Jason in real time, to evolve past him. In the courtyard, none of them raised a weapon. They formed a half circle. Jason didn't blink. He stepped forward. 1 foot, that was enough. 0 to 3 stepped back. Langley noticed it immediately. Mark 0 to 3 for cognitive recalibration, he muttered. Dr. Myles stepped closer, whispering, "They don't know what to do." Jason didn't answer, but she was right. The replacements were built for perfection. But perfection didn't anticipate hesitation. Jason took one more step, deliberate, slow. 0 to 1 jaw twitched. Back in the eastern chute, the boy was moving again, not running, climbing. He had seen the feed, the new agents, and something in his posture changed. He didn't panic. He didn't cry. He just whispered. He surrounded. And began rewiring the portable relay node Jason had built him 3 episodes ago. The one Jason said never to use unless the system began replacing people. He activated it. It didn't open doors. It opened loops. Old training footage began broadcasting through the prison's internal network. Raw, unedited data of Jason Statham disarming bombs, redirecting hostage takers, refusing unethical commands. Every ghost inmate saw it. So did the new recruits. Jason turned slightly, to the east wall. Behind it, the interior communications ladder. He moved, not fast, just steady. 0 to 4 twitched again, and then finally 0 to 7 stepped forward, first contact. Jason didn't raise a guard, just watched. 0 to 7 gait was perfect. Same shoulder tilt Jason had, same low center. But not the eyes, they were empty. Langley leaned into the mic. Begin engagement simulation, non-lethal. Test 0-1. 0 to 7 hands flexed. He leapt forward. Jason sidestepped, grabbed the arm mid-flight, redirected the motion into a spin. 0 to 7 landed on his feet, sharp, but not improvising. Jason sighed internally, still predictable. Up above, Langley added a second command, pair 0 to 6, counter. Jason turned just in time as 0 to 6 came low. This time Jason moved backward, not to evade, to measure. 2 moves in, 3. He let 0 to 6 lock his arm just for 2 seconds. Then Jason twisted out with a foot pivot only someone with old scars knew how to time. 0 to 6 hit the wall, not hard, but enough to stagger. 0 to 1 and 0 to 2 adjusted position. They weren't reacting to him. They were learning from him. Jason's stomach turned. They weren't soldiers. They were feeds. Dr. Myles reached into her coat and activated the jammer. Suddenly the replacement squad stuttered, only for a second, but it was enough. Their feed link went static. Langley's screen blinked. He slammed his fist down. "She's severing their neural loop." He turned to the secondary operator. "Bring in Omega-1. The tech paused. "But she's now." In the ventilation room 2 floors down, a separate door unlocked. A chamber not linked to any map. Inside it, a chair, and in it, a girl no older than 20, eyes closed, hair buzzed short. Arms strapped gently but tightly. She opened her eyes and whispered, "Jason." In the courtyard, Jason felt it, not a sound, a pull. The same way you feel gravity shift when a storm is coming. He turned east. Dr. Myles looked at him. She saw it too, something else had been activated. But this one wasn't a replacement, it was a project. Back in the prison's lower wings, inmates had begun to stir, not because of noise, because of the tapes. One by one they saw the real Jason Statham, not the myth, not the monster. Just the man who had chosen not to strike, not to run, not to betray. And some of them, the ones wired with failure switches, began to override their programming because they remembered. The replacements began to flicker, not visibly, internally, one by one, their gestures slowed. Because the feed had corrupted, they weren't learning. They were watching emotion, and emotion was never clean. Jason walked directly up to 0 to 1, the closest one, the leader. They stood face to face. Jason reached up and tapped the man once in the center of his chest. Where the unit code was printed, 0 to 1 flinched. It wasn't pain, it was memory, but it didn't belong to him. Jason whispered, "You're a mirror, but I'm still the source." She stepped barefoot into the light, no guards, no hesitation. No memory of how she got into that chair, but every memory of who put her there. Her name was never logged. No badge, no birth date, not even a file in the official Ghost Unit register. They called her Echo, but only one voice had ever said her real name, Jason Statham. She remembered it not from words, but from how he moved, because Echo was the only other person who'd survived the original batch. But Jason had been sent to the field. She'd been kept in storage, in the courtyard. Jason Statham's hand still hovered after tapping the chest of 0 to 1. A ripple effect spread through the formation. Small twitches in posture, shoulders relaxing slightly, eyes blinking out of sync. They were watching him, but now they weren't mirroring, they were glitching. Langley's experiment was doing what it was never supposed to do, feel. Langley pivoted to the far terminal. He typed rapidly, bypassing the override. "I need control of subject Echo." The screen pulsed red. Cognitive lock engaged, manual authorization required. Langley cursed under his breath. The lock had been placed by someone else. Someone who hadn't trusted Langley completely, Jason. Echo passed through the southern maintenance corridor barefoot, past 2 unconscious guards. She didn't look at them. Her face showed no expression. But her fingertips dragged along the wall, as if she was reading history through the vibrations. She paused at a rusted junction, pressed a palm to the metal. The wall didn't open. It unfolded, a rotating mechanism revealing a sealed hallway with symbols burned into its edges. Language not written, code left by Jason. He'd been here before, and left a map she could feel, not read. Jason turned from the replacements, eyes narrowing. He felt the air shift again, not from the agents, not from Myles, from below. He turned to Dr. Myles, who already knew. "She's awake." Jason didn't ask how she knew, he simply moved, and the replacements, they didn't follow, they just watched him go. Like students watching a ghost walk out of a classroom for the last time. Langley paced, "Send in Omega. Now." The technician hesitated. "We haven't tested I said now." A second vault opened below the main level, and inside Omega stood waiting. It wasn't a person, it was a drone-piloted suit, built with Jason's frame specs, simulated reflexes, voice-coded AI interface. It didn't look like him, but it moved like him. Langley stared at it through the glass. Let's see if the machine does what the men couldn't. Echo reached the old debriefing wing. Dust layered every surface like snow. She opened the center console and removed a small disk from beneath the rusted control pad. It was labeled with a single word, remember. She placed it into the reader. A hologram flickered to life. Jason Statham, younger, blood on his sleeve, dirt on his face, sitting in this exact room. His voice played, "If you're seeing this, Echo, then I failed. Or I made it further than they expected. Either way, you've got the piece I didn't." He looked away in the recording. "They told us we were weapons, but we were mirrors, and mirrors crack." She closed her eyes. The disc ejected itself. Jason entered the old access tunnel by the sub-basement laundry hall. He moved like he'd rehearsed this in his sleep, because he had. This wasn't escape anymore. It was retrieval. He reached the lower vault and saw the open chair, empty, and then he heard it, not footsteps, breathing. From the far side of the hall, Echo stepped into view. She was taller than before, leaner, scar on her neck, but her eyes were the same. Jason didn't smile, neither did she, but both of them remembered. Langley watched both figures on 2 separate monitors. He pressed a command. Omega activated. It didn't boot up with noise. It just moved and began running toward their location. Echo walked forward slowly. Jason stepped closer. Their hands didn't touch, but the space between them charged like static. Echo whispered more to herself. "You left a code." Jason nodded once. "That's what they couldn't predict," he said. "I knew you'd find it." Behind them, the hallway lights flickered. Something was coming. Dr. Myles rerouted the courtyard feed to loop static again, then pulled H04 aside. "Langley's sending something worse." H04 looked toward the old East Tower. His breath stilled. "Worse than us," she nodded. "Worse than memory." In the inner tunnel, Jason and Echo began to move, together, not as a team, as a single reaction, each one understanding the blind spots of the other. They moved through the wiring room, Jason disabling the proximity sensors while Echo rerouted power through her bare hands like she was tuning a piano. The system lights turned green. They weren't shutting things down. They were restarting them. Langley's screen displayed, Omega in range. And then, direct engagement in 0045 Omega entered the outer shaft, a mechanical shape in full blackout armor. No human skin, no breath, no delay, just simulation running in real time, every Jason Statham movement digitized, every reflex programmed. But it didn't calculate deviation. Jason didn't fight to win, he fought to protect. Echo turned to him. "He's sending it," Jason nodded, then opened the last wall panel inside. "A core detonator, not for destruction, for EMP flash." He looked to Echo. "This shuts down the feeds, the suits, the loop." She nodded. "But didn't take it." Jason placed it in her palm. "You're faster now. Lighter." She didn't argue, she just ran. Jason turned and waited. Omega didn't slow down. Its feet shredded the old floor, metal claws scoring gouges through the concrete as it closed the distance. 20 meters. 15. The old surveillance lights above its path exploded from static interference, not from impact. The suit was running on a signal field so dense, it melted weak wiring in its path, and Jason Statham didn't move. He just stood in the hall, staring down the corridor with a kind of silence that didn't belong in war. A silence not of surrender but of understanding. Behind him, somewhere deeper in the crawlspace levels, Echo was still running, EMP in hand. The timing had to be exact. If she hit the pulse too early, Omega's field would reboot before its threat system shut down. If she was late, Jason wouldn't be able to stall it a second time. Langley stared at the live telemetry feed. Omega's vitals were perfect. Core temperature holding, servos unflinching, targeting matrix live. But something inside him, something even he didn't want to name, twitched. It was too smooth, too efficient. Omega was operating without fear, hesitation, or memory, and that meant Jason had already won. Jason took one step forward, only one, and Omega reacted. It charged full body, no deceleration. Its upper frame spun mid-run, launching a hooked arm toward Jason's throat. Jason ducked, not fast, timed. The claw missed by millimeters. And Jason struck once, open palm, to the lower joint behind the knee. It didn't stop Omega, but it made the machine recalculate. Jason didn't move again. The corridor tightened. Omega reanalyzed, and this time launched a shoulder charge instead of claws. Jason sidestepped. Just enough to make Omega collide with the support beam. Cracks spread through the concrete. Dust dropped from the ceiling. Jason looked up. That was his window. He whispered without sound. "Now." Echo turned the final corner, her breath controlled. No panic. She reached the center chamber, the core ventilation access, the exact intersection of 4 corridors. At the center, a fuse board Jason had rewired years ago with a manual override in case digital controls ever failed. She slammed the EMP against it, pressed both activation nodes. The capacitor hissed once, then detonated, silent white pulse. Omega paused mid-swing, stopped, mid-movement. Its leg hung in the air half a meter from Jason's face. Then its eyes flickered, and the light inside died. Omega slumped forward, not like a man, like an idea collapsing. Jason stepped aside. The machine dropped to the ground like a ragged steel exoskeleton, steaming at the edges. In the control room, Langley didn't blink, just turned away, pulled a small drive from the side console, and walked out, no words, because he knew what Jason had done. It wasn't about defeating Omega. It was about teaching the system why it failed. Echo returned to the corridor 2 minutes later. Jason was sitting against the wall, one hand resting on his knee. He didn't look injured, but he looked tired. She sat beside him, and they waited. No conversation, just the kind of quiet between people who had once been experiments and were now survivors. Dr. Myles was watching them from the old air tower. She'd rerouted the cameras to avoid Langley's eyes, but she didn't record this moment. Some memories weren't meant for tape. Some truths were earned, not captured. A soft click echoed from beneath Jason's boot. He reached down, lifted a metal plate inside, an old micro-recorder, analog, taped over 10 times, scratched and dirty. Jason looked at Echo. "I left this here the night I escaped." He pressed play. Static, then his voice, younger, angrier. "I don't know who you'll become. Maybe they'll change your name. Maybe they'll say you volunteered for this, but I know what I saw in your eyes." Short pause. "You weren't a ghost. You were a signal. And if you hear this, it means you're still sending." Static again. Then silence. Echo stared at the floor, her voice barely audible. "They said I failed recalibration." Jason looked at her sideways. "No," he paused. "You remembered. That night the prison's alarm system shut down. Not due to sabotage, because someone on the upper level, a technician whose brother had once trained with Jason, saw what was happening and turned the system off. One button, one silent decision. The facility went dark. Doors unlocked, not all, just the right ones. Elsewhere in the building, replacement agents from Sequence 0 to 9X began removing their armor, not in defiance, in confusion. They couldn't describe what they felt, because emotion wasn't in the programming, but curiosity was, and Jason had given them something no code could erase: a choice. Langley drove alone, out of the facility, out of the valley, into the next command, because men like him didn't stop, they relocated. But as he passed through the checkpoint, a security officer leaned in. "You left this," the man said, handing Langley a folded piece of paper. Langley opened it, one sentence hand-scrawled. "You replaced the wrong man." Langley didn't speak, didn't fold the note. He let it drift out the window as he drove away. Back in the courtyard, Jason Statham walked once more, alone this time. Echo had gone to the West Wing to find others. Dr. Myles had vanished into the admin files. H04 had disappeared the second the alarm shut off, but Jason walked past the transmitter again. The signal had stopped. The light was off, but not everything needed to be recorded. Some missions ended not in explosions, but in a slow return to self. And yet, as he reached the eastern gate, something stopped him. A sound, not boots, not drones, a voice, faint, small, a child's voice. Jason turned slowly. The courtyard wasn't empty, someone was standing there. A boy, the one who had watched the tapes, rerouted the node and triggered the loop. He held something in his hand, a small tag, dog tags, but they weren't Jason's. They were his own. He held them out. Jason didn't take them. He knelt and said nothing, just waited. The boy whispered, "They said I'd forget everything." Jason didn't blink. They were wrong.